Hey folks, welcome back to the channel Techado, and in this episode we are going to do a very interesting build of this racing quadcopter. Now this racing quadcopter is a little bit different because apart from it being very sporty, apart from being snappy fast, also I've introduced some new LED lights that will actually glow according to the way you're pitching the quadcopter at, yawing the quadcopter at, and then rolling the quadcopter at. So these lights will keep on glowing. Also, it also allows you to do some very important stuff, is that this quadcopter will also bring you to the addictive world of FPV racing. You can also use this in tracks and everything, because you can actually, your buddies can actually say when you scoot past by, they can see the lights and everything. From this episode, I have learned a lot. From this build, actually, I've learned a lot. And this is all about sharing my experience, what sort of motors I'm using, what are the props that I would recommend. By the way, this is an HQ prop, but let's quickly dive in and see what all stuff we require for this build and how are we going to build this new FPV quadcopter. So let's begin. This is the Vortex 230 Mojo, and that's where the journey began. Then I went ahead and built this one with the Fat Shark Bifrost system. So it's like an analog SD, and I've got a lot of videos about how to use Bifrost system or analog SD system for your quadcopters and everything. This was built, but I did not post any. I think I posted only 2 videos about how to introduce the the camera and how to introduce the VTX. So these 2 drones I've already built. There's another drone which you already saw, but what I did was that I'm going to build this drone out here today. This is a ASTRO TRUEX kind of a frame. As you can see right now, the TRUEX frame is a very light frame, and the battery on this will be bottom mounted. Now all of my drones that you see are top mounted, more for freestyle, but this will improve like my ability to fly like racing drones for more racing purposes and everything. Selection of the motors is actually very important. I went out and bought this skinny motors. These are 22S7. These are skinny and tall. So I think 2207 is better than 2306 that a lot of people are using. But if you are wondering, these are very low kV motors. These are 1900 kV. You can go for 1700 kVs if you want, but I went with 1900 kVs. The reason behind is that I'm running 4S still. If you want to look into the frame is one of the most premium frames out there. These are, I think they come out from Korea, and these frames are pretty premium. Like from the very beginning, when you touch, you know that these frames are pretty premium. Now this is not a dedicated FPV channel, so I'll be not going through the details of what is the millimeter thickness and all that stuff. For me, all that is pointless. For me, it's just about building the drones, having some fun, and sharing with you guys. So at first, what we are going to do is that we are going to quickly install all the motors, because after that we have got a surprise for you. We'll be using some tiny LED lights and add some lights out here. And for flight controller, let me show you something. For flight controller, we have selected the T motor F4 flight controller. I do have a lot of spares actually, so these, I do have a Mamba flight controller, but I'm saving the Mamba. This came from an old quad, so they're already pre-tinned and everything. That's pretty much it, just holding the motor in place. Same stuff for the 4 other motors, so let's do that. Alright folks, the first step is done. The motors are installed, and you will see that these are wires or motors which were taken from an old quad. So you can use race wires like this, and this comes with a stack. If you are buying a T motor F40, these are perfect for that. You can use these, but then if you are adding like race wires or race plates like this, why not use something like this? So This is like a Pyro's version of tiny LED lights, and we are going to install them in such a way that like it gives us the cool effect of it, and we do not lose the purpose of the props trying to hit your product. So the cool thing about the Pyro product is that they include like all the stuff that you might need. But as you can see, I've got a plethora of spares lying around. Also, we did purchase in ESC. We are going to use the cheapest ESC that I could find, 45 amps, because I know that I'll be good with 45 amp. By the way, you can use this 470 microfarads capacitor if you want for a 4S build, but I'm a little bit more futuristic. I look more into the future, and hence I've got a very big kind of a capacitor. This is not recommended, but if I ever fly in 6S, this is the one that I'm going to use. So this is 1000 microfarads, 35 volts. I don't know whether you guys can see because I'm shooting with an Osmo Pocket. Inside the box you'll find rubber grommets. Wow, iFlight packs this up really good. I did have an XT60 and I did not wanted to buy another XT60, but iFlight actually was kind enough to include everything in the pack. So that's pretty awesome. They even have included different wires so that like you do not have to get through all the spares. So basically everything comes with it. And there you go. This is the ESC that I was talking about. This is like 30 bucks, the cheapest ESC that you can buy. And my whole thing is that I'm going to put it out here, but we have to use some rubber grommets, which we are going to use from here, and let the journey begin. Alrighty guys, so this is exactly what not you're going to do. Never cut your wires so small that later you would not be able to solder, because if you are cutting these wires very small or anything, the problem arises is that later when you're building another quad, you cannot reuse this. The reason I am doing this is because this is the last drone that these motors will see light, which means that if something happens to these motors, I'm completely going to replace this. They've served me for 2 years. So let's quickly tin everything, tin all the pads and everything, and I'll come back and show you the tin. Alright guys, so watch this very carefully. I've clipped all these wires, and I've prepared the whole section. As you can see, I have prepared the wires in such a way that I can quickly go in and out with soldering. So soldering is prepared. Now you might be wondering, what am I doing with this plate? This plate covers the ESC from any sort of blobs or anything. Last time I did such a big solder splatter, I learned my mistake, and this time I'm going to put a protector just to like if the solder splatters or anything, I can quickly do workouts on this. So let's begin soldering right now. Alrighty, so as you can see, all of these has been tinned, blobs of solder I did a visual inspection and everything was fine. There's wax all around my fingers. Now same thing we are going to repeat with all of these. I do not want to waste time. It's already evening. I want to do it before everything goes dark. Okay, so now we're beginning on the motors. Alright guys, so you see that everything has been tinned and everything properly. Visual inspection, everything looks fine. Yeah, everything looks fine in visual inspection. Last, these two pads are left, so tin that. We'll tin motor wires and come back. Alrighty, now comes the most interesting part of to arrange these motor wires. So this is my plan. My plan is to go around, so I'm gonna install them like this. Okay, so watch this. So this is the plan. See, this is the problem. Okay, that's done. Alrighty folks, everything has been soldered and everything, so you can see all the wires are going inside out. Alright guys, so this is the most complicated part of this because if you mess up in the wire length or anything, you would not be able to fix that later on. As you can see, one of my wires was a little bit small. To put the heat shrink, make sure you're putting the heat shrink at first. So you will see that I put this heat shrink at first and then I've soldered that, and underneath lies my double-sided tape. So it's a little bit intricate process and it's going to be time consuming, so be prepared for that. Alright folks, so this is how it looks. I've not put the flight controller or anything yet, but these are the lights and everything. So if you guys can, I don't know whether it's going to focus or not. So these are the lights. The wires are coming from inside out. This took me a lot of time, so if you guys are planning to put LED, this takes a lot of time because sometimes wires are not cut properly. As you can see, this set of wires was not cut properly and I made a mistake, and while these were actually cut properly. About putting the capacitor. Alrighty, so the capacitor is all the way at the back, and you can see I've taken wires directly from out here. The XT60 is going to be all the way held like this, so the chances of this hitting the XT60 should not be that great because I'm going to be putting a zip tie right out here. You know, like right out here I'm going to put a zip tie so that it doesn't hit the XT60. So that is the plan right now, and our next stage will be flight controller. Alright folks, so it's always very interesting that something or the other will always happen when you are trying to build something, and the same scenario is out here. So at first you guys would have recognized that I was using a T-Motor F4 controller. As you would see, this board, this was originally what I was planning. Now what happened was that in the beginning everything was working fine, and as far as I remember, after the crash everything was okay, it was doing good. I do not know what happened, but this part of it, I think there's some sort of problem in the cam part of it. So the cam was not working. I always have a lot of spares, so I do have a flight controller and I've ordered a new one already. So you will see that I'm using a Mamba F405 Mark II flight controller. Now when you're using a Mamba 405 Mark II controller, it's very interesting because even though Diatone's website, they say that you need to, you know, like pin like this, solder like this, but there is a thing. The thing is this, that on this side you will notice that there is a 9-volt pad out here, and if you connect your VTX or anything, sometimes this 9-volt pad doesn't work. Now since this was from 7 to 36, technically this should work from the 9-volt pad, but from prior experiences, and since I've worked with this board for a long time, I did not take a risk this time, and I've put the VCC and the ground on the top. Yeah, right out here at the top there is a VCC and ground, and that's where I connected it. Obviously you're going to work without the props. I mean, I've just placed the props because I was just checking it out. I did not connect or anything. So that's my camera. It's a CAD-X rattle with a built-in ND filter, and as a receiver I'm using FrSky R9M receiver. Now the thing is that how to position this. Okay, so the thing is that I actually took the T-Motor F4 30x30, and since I had this spare, I actually top mounted the VTX and I top mounted the receiver. And what I did was that I'm actually going from below out here like this, and I would take all the wires from here, and then I'm just going to mount it. Now there's two ways of going like this. As you can see, if you want, you can go underneath and connect the antenna from here. In that way it's much more clean. As you can see, the setup is way more cleaner. and then you can actually give this couple of twists, and then you can plug the VTX in. Pretty clean setup. There will be no problem in the stack or anything. And at the bottom, remember when I was talking that I will put a zip tie so that the battery does not come out or anything. So I did add a zip tie out here. Okay, so you will see that there is a zip tie out here, and the zip tie is holding that XT60 connector right out here. I hope you guys can see. I think it's in focus. Yes, it is in focus. So this is the part that you need to concentrate. The zip tie is going all around, and that's how I'm holding the thing. Now I have 3D, I did make a 3D design of the top part of it. So I'm going to share you guys the 3D top part of it. If you want STL files, you can always leave a comment below. I can send you the STL files. You can print it or anything. I have not printed it out yet, and I'm going to check whether this works or not. But I've printed a top part where I'm going to take the antenna and top mount it. So that's for the build, guys. That was all for the build. Now a few things that you should have done in the beginning if this is your first build. Since it's my fourth build and this is coming from the second quadcopter, I already know that my motors are working. Now let me show you quickly if suppose you see one of these motor directions are not working properly or not, as it happened in my case scenario. You will see that the video is a little bit out of focus, but you can understand what I'm going to talk about and show you. So let's do the motor orientation at first. Alrighty folks, this is what you're going to do in the beginning. Actually, I am doing this step as a last step. There is no particular order because I always do it at the last, but you have to make sure that you are doing the motor step test. Make sure that all the motors, they are working accordingly. So what you're going to do is that you're going to head over to motors, connect your battery like this. Hold on, you should not hold anything that would make contact or anything. And while you're done, watch all these motors. Okay, so as you can see, this is a normal pattern. I have not reversed anything. There's no reverse pattern yet. Props off all the time. Watch motor 1. So motor 1 actually is not spinning in the direction. It is spinning on the opposite side. So motor 1 needs to be reversed. Check on motor 2. Motor 2 is fine. It's spinning in the normal direction, so that's fine. Motor 3 is also spinning in the normal direction. That's fine. Motor 4 needs to be reversed because it's spinning in this side. Okay, so that is the test that you should do in the beginning. Okay, so let's show you how to do that. You disconnect it. I usually eject the battery all the time, so battery is ejected. But it's a very important thing that to know that when you go and download this from Google Chrome, so basically what you're going to do is that go to Google Chrome, download this BL Heli configurator app. Once you have downloaded that, you need to connect. Now do not use the same port that you are using. If you are using a MacBook Pro, do not use the same Thunderbolt 3 port, just change the port. So what I do is that I just change the port out here. You can go out here and change like manually and everything. I do not do all that stuff. I do not go ahead and change ports on the port tab or anything. Then what you're going to do is you're going to connect again your battery. Then after that, when you're done and everything is initialized, you have heard the 5 beeps, go ahead and press connect. Now unique ID is received, which means that you are good to go. Now what you do is read setup. It will read your setup, and then motor 1 needs to be reversed, so it's reversed, and motor 4 needs to be reversed, so you reverse that, and then you press write setup. Once setup is written in your logs, you are going to notice that ESC1 is written, ESC2 there is no changes, 3 is no changes, and ESC4 is written, and writing setup is finished. After that, you disconnect this. You have disconnected it. Again, what you're going to do is that you're going to take out the battery again. I always do this. I never follow a lot of people that why? Because I have only one few quads. I have only 4 quads, and I do not want to mess it up or anything. Then you go to beta flight again. In beta flight, you close this, press connect, and you'll see that I have disabled my accelerometer because it creates a lot of problem. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go to motors tab again, and then we are going to feed in power. Once you feed in power, let's check motor 1. So again, you have to understand this. So you will see that the motor 1 is now spinning inwards. Okay, and let's see motor 4. Motor 4 is also spinning inwards. You should do props out, then props in, but I keep it like this. I've got no problem. I do not see minute changes, to be very frank. Disconnect and then take this out. Take your battery out. You should not let this thing to run a lot. Alrighty folks, so make sure, I think I've tucked all this in. Pretty clean build. I have a habit of putting Fevikwik, or I have a habit of putting some, you know, like glue on the sides of this ESC so that these wires, they do not tear off easily or anything. Also glued on the top out here, glued in these joints. I glue everything, to be very honest. I have a habit of it. That is not very conventional. I do not know if somebody recommends it or not, but I do it. I feel more comfortable in it, whatever makes you comfortable, to be very honest, brothers and sisters out there. And what we're going to do is that now we're going to cover this. And, this is a very expensive frame, guys. This is actually made by ASTRO from Korea. These are not those non-premium frames or anything. It's a very premium frame, and the moment I touched it, I knew that this is a very premium frame. And I've recently learned that this is being flown by ASTRO, Johnny FPV. Folks, I think that more or less every pilot has it in them, to be very honest. Let's see this video of this pilot from, you know, like whom I just met in Facebook. Quick shout out to you, brother. That was an amazing flying session that I saw. I'm actually going to post your video while we are watching, while I'm building this. You guys are watching that. This guy is like on a very good kind of, has a very good flow of cinematic flying, flies over water. Flying over water is a little bit tricky because on FPV, I think it's kind of easy, but then it's also tricky because if you lose connection or you lose transmission on your quad or anything, it falls directly in the water and you cannot recover from there. So I think this video actually shows the courage of the pilot, and that is the reason I do not try to promote, you know, like pilots like Johnny FPV and pilots who have already earned their name and they're big hotshot, because I think there are other pilots that are equally fly good. It's just that, you know, these videos, they do not see a light. So that's pretty much it, guys. That was the whole episode. This is the build of this is a build of a racing quadcopter. Also has got lights and everything, so whenever at night you are turning this on, it really looks pretty cool. I'll be running 4S on this. The 3D mount, I bought it from Pyro Drone, but if you want to build this 3D mount, you can actually make this. Let me show you what I am making for this quadcopter. Now the thing is, my intention is purely for myself, because I do not think a lot of people has an ASTRO frame, to be very honest. These are very old frames now, so there's no purpose of me to like sell these or anything. And to be very honest, you can always download STL files. I'll be posting some STL files on special request. Whoever mails me, I can email you guys the STL files and do some prints, but I have to confirm whether everything works or not. So that's it, guys. Thank you for watching the episode. If you like this episode, give me a big thumbs up, like, and do subscribe only if you like content which is filled with variety. So take care. See you guys on another episode.